We're back in the nearing the end of this amazing. We'll see. You're going to get to the part about the prophets. It's just going to knock everybody out. The Rebbe is talking about. This is 1991. The Rebbe is speaking. Now again, what's the Rebbe trying to do over? What's the whole point? What's the whole point of Chabad? The whole point of Chabad is Moshiach. There is Maimonides. Maimonides was a very, very, how do you say, down to earth, normal, not revolutionary or whatever Jew. Super intelligence, super intellectual. Everything he said, he sifted through 100 times. He knew all the books of the Torah. He knew all Kabbalah. He knew all these books, even though he didn't express Kabbalah very much. But the Rebbe proves that he knew Kabbalah. And in the end of his book, he has a book which is 14 volumes. And it goes through all the laws of Judaism, including laws that are not relevant now. They'll only be relevant when Moshiach builds the third temple and gathers the Jews to Israel. And he has those laws also. And he's the only rabbi in all of Judaism that does this, that has laws, covers every single facet of Judaism, whether it's relevant now or it's not relevant now or will be relevant. All the laws of the Kohanim, the priests, all the laws of the Holy Temple, the garments of the Holy Temple, in a law book. In a law book. There's a lot of different opinions about Mashiach and a lot of different opinions about this, but he makes it a law. There are certain things that people disagree with him. Great men, equally as great as he, I guess, if you can say a thing like that. But in any case, the Rif, the Ran, they disagree with him. There's places where they disagree, and they bring proof. And there's that, which is good. It's a good thing to argue in Judaism as well. Wonderful if you bring proofs. Yeah. But there's one thing that nobody disagrees with. No one disagrees with him. The Rambam wrote a Maimonides. Rambam is Rab Moshe ben Maimon. And one thing that no one disagrees with him. No one. Except maybe in the last 100 years, there popped up people that consider themselves to be inspired. Who knows what? But all the great rabbis, holy rabbis, Kabbalistic geniuses, knowing everything, no one has ever disagreed with him what he says about Mashiach. No one. And what he says about Mashiach is essentially that Mashiach is the most important issue in our lives. Everybody, Jew, non-Jew. Mashiach is the most important topic in human activity. Mashiach. In fact, it's probably the least important. Who cares about Mashiach? Right? And even when you tell people about it, they say, that's wacky. There's a Rambam, very, how do you say, down to earth, very intellectual, how do you say, firmly based person, not freaky, not as. And he says the most important topic in Judaism, in life, in reality is Mashiach. Mashiach is simply going to reveal that there's a creator and that the creator is creating us. And he's going to reveal the true value of the Torah. And all the other religions are going to fall away. All of them. There won't be any more Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Shintoism, Confucian. There won't be any more. Just won't exist. All of them. Everyone will worship only the creator. That's pretty important. That's pretty major, right? There won't be any false news. There won't be any false reality. There won't be any false ideas and philosophies. And okay. And that's what the Rebbe is trying to do. He's trying to drive us crazy and make us realize that what we really think is important is at best secondary importance. And that the most important thing in life and reality is something which we give no importance to whatsoever. And we think it has absolutely nothing to do with our life, so we think, and that is Mashiach. So the Rebbe says, one of the things about Mashiach is going to be that in the days of the Mashiach, you won't need policemen. Not like these people say, defund the police. You defund the police, and all there is just more confusion and death. And incredible, huh? Just simply insane what's going on now. But the fact of the matter is that the police essentially are not a good thing. Why? Because a policeman indicates that there's people who want to do bad to themselves. And they want to do bad to others. Doing bad to others is doing bad to yourself. So there has to be policemen to police the world and stop people from doing evil. Because people want to do evil. People want to worship idols. We see all these religions. There's 2.5 billion Christians. It's all idolatry. And they want to do it. And they have logic behind it. And they hate the Jews, right? Because the Jews are trying to tell them not to do it. People want to do what's wrong. So you have to have policemen to force them. Okay, that's the way it was in the past. Nowadays, the forcing doesn't help. But in the future, it's not going to be that way. In the future, there's not going to be policemen. There's going to be advisors. Because everyone is going to want to serve only the Creator. But it'll just have to be because everyone is different. And everyone is unique. So everyone has to do it in their own way, which talks to them. Everyone will do the same thing, right? They will not worship idols. They will not worship their religions. But on the other hand, every person has their own personality. And what will you do? A person has to be happy. A person has to have a meaningful life. And that is each and every individual person will find his, talents, his nature, what appeals to him. But so they'll have to have advisors. Like people, before they go to the Queen, the presidents of the United States, before they go to the Queen, so they have to have somebody that advises them. It doesn't make any difference else. When you go to the Queen, you don't say, "Hi, Queenie." You don't do a thing like that, right? When you go to the Queen, you don't stick out your hand and give her a good, man's handshake. There's procedures that you do, etiquette. How you do the same thing. You're going to have advisors, how to deal with God, how to deal with other people, how to deal with certain situations, because everybody will want to do the right thing. So they'll have to have advisors. Okay. Dugmas, and now something like this, there is also the difference between the words of the Torah and the words of prophecy. Prophets. The prophets, Odeshneim, is spoken about in this week's Torah portion, Shoftim. It's talked about Torah. This is above the world. The Torah, 5 books of Moses, is before the world. Torah is the wisdom and the will of God. The Torah is above any connection to the world. The Torah is just saying, this is the way things are. Just like there's no possible thought that can grasp God. Right? God is creating the angels. We don't know what an angel is. You see an angel, you freak out. Right? You go crazy. You open up your door and you see a big dog, you freak out. A spider. Right? You freak out. You see an angel. How much an angel can destroy a whole city with Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah, they call it. I don't know why they call it Gomorrah. Where they get this from? I don't know. In the Torah, it says Sodom and Gomorrah. Right? And Gomorrah. So Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed by an angel. One angel destroyed. Sodom and Gomorrah was a complex of 5 huge metropolises, cities, and one angel destroyed all of them. That's pretty freaky, an angel. Huh? Well, God creates the angels. So we can't understand what an angel is. We don't understand what an angel is, right? How much more so we can't understand how God's created. There's no thought that can possibly grasp God. And that's where the Torah comes from. Even though the Torah came down, and it came in understanding and ideas, until the Torah can be Torah Moshe, whatever, it can be my Torah, I learned. But nevertheless, the Torah never lost its essential, the essence of the Torah is what? God, pure godliness. It's above understanding. The Torah is not a book written by Moses, and it's not a book written by an angel. It's not a book written by some spiritual level that came down to us. It's written by the creator of Moses, the creator of the angels, the creator of the spiritual levels, the Torah. That's the only book in the world that's like that. Look, and therefore, Gam often pull as a Torah, how the Torah works in the world is mainly in a way of commandments. The Torah tells you what to do. This is what God says. But accept it, don't accept it. This is the truth. Which is not the case. Prophecy. Prophecy, even though the prophecy, what Isaiah says, what Yechezkel, what is it, Ezekiel, what they say, even though what they say is also the words of God, but it's a different way of revelation. Harihu is Galus Elokus. This is revelation of God to the prophet. Gilis Sodo Shel Avadav, and even that God revealed His secrets to His servants, the prophets. Gedoram Haim, in their level. It says that Isaiah was higher than Ezekiel, and Ezekiel was higher than what? Zechariah. Huh? It says in the Kabbalistic books that Moses, his prophecy was like from the world of Atzilut. And Isaiah was from the world of Bria. That's not the upper heaven. And Yechezkel was the world of Yetzirah. And I think Zephaniah, No, Zephaniah or Zechariah. Zechariah, he was from the world of Asiya, physical. What this means, I have no idea, but that's what it is. These are different spiritual levels, which are the different help. In other words, the prophets are giving over godliness as it comes sifted through them. The word of God came into their minds and their intellect of the prophet. Of course, the prophet was a tremendously pure person, but often in a way that it unites the prophet united with the message that he received, but it was received in his mind and his understanding in a way of prophecy and a prophetic vision, and in his thought and in his speech, like it says, Ruach Hashem diber bi. The Spirit of God is speaking through me. Who said this? Samuel, Shmuel. In a way, he was sort of the first prophet, Shmuel. I mean, Moses was the first prophet. The Spirit of God is speaking through me. And of course, we know that there's false prophets. We learned about that in previous. The Inyan and Nevuah, the whole idea of prophecy is, it has to come in a revealed way in speech. Kol Lashon Nevuah, the whole idea of Nevuah means that it flows. A person, Kol Lashon Nevuah, Adam HaMachriz u'Mashmiel Am. It has to be something that he tells over to the people. That's the true thing of prophecy. But who, because there is Niv Sifatayim. Niv means like it's the movement coming out. Below Torah, not like the Torah, that the Torah can remain just in thought. But you can think ideas of the Torah. The whole purpose of the prophecy, what were prophets? Prophets were people who came to strengthen the Torah. When the Jews strayed away from the Torah, so the prophets came to bring them back to the Torah. That's the whole thing of the prophets, only to strengthen the Torah. A prophet cannot make up new laws. The fact is, he can make up a new law if he does it for a very limited amount of time, and he does just once, not permanently. A prophet cannot change the laws of the Torah permanently, right? There were the example given always was like Elijah the prophet offered up sacrifices on Mount Carmel, which you're not allowed to do that. There was the first temple. The prophet Ezekiel, he was in the time of the first temple. You can't make sacrifices outside of the temple. But he did it one time against the Baal. Remember that? So Torah can remain in thought, but the whole thing of the prophets, it has to come out. And prophecy also has to be relevant to the world. A prophet only comes to tell people things that are going to be in the world. Right? To warn the Jews what's going to be, to encourage the Jews to do Torah. The Yeshlom, we can say, Shetorah and Nevuah, these are two things together. Heim nichlalim, like it says, this is something like the way of Shoftim v'yoatzecha. This is something like your judges and your advisors. What do we say? The Torah says you have to make judges and policemen, but that's only when the Jews don't want to do what God says. So they have to have policemen to enforce it. But in the days of the Moshiach, there's going to be judges and advisors because the Jews will want to do what God says. Therefore, but they won't know how. So you'll have to have a judge. He decrees from above. He tells you what's right. You want to do it or not, that's not his problem. He's telling you what's right. He's making a big I'd say improvement in the world. He's telling what's right and wrong. An advisor is a person that's at your level, and he's trying to tell you in a how do you say, eye to eye way, right? Eye level. He's trying to tell you in a nice, pleasant way to put it inside of you that you want to do. That's an advisor. A shofet, his thing is that he tells what the law of the Torah is, that this is in a way of a commandment and a decree. A yoetz, an advisor, he gives it advice which is melubeshes, clothed in garments of the person who's listening. The judge doesn't care who's listening. You're guilty, you're innocent, you owe him money. That's the decision. That's what you have to do. An advisor, he says, listen, I want to explain something, why this is to your benefit to do and how to do what the judge says you have to do, right? You don't have to pay it all at one time. Maybe you can pay little by little. Maybe you can, maybe I can help you find the job that you can talk to a litigant, maybe he'll be willing to come to terms. That's the advisor. He does it at your level, friendly, so that you understand and you grasp what is right according to your personality. That's like a prophet. The prophets, this is generally like an advisor. And the prophets usually come from what's called the two aspects of the human personality called netzach and hod. A prophet is not a judge. He gives an advice, comes down to earth regarding to the world, things that are going to be in the world. He gives prophecies, what's going to happen. Like, for instance, to Jeremiah, he said, don't make war against Nebuchadnezzar, surrender to him, it'll be okay. If you make war, it's just going to be bad. And there were all these false prophets that said, no, we'll fight and we will succeed and we will win and we will go and we will flow and we will know. Do not believe anybody except for me. And there was hundreds of these false prophets, and they gave false advice. They gave false prophecies of what was going to be, false visions of the future. A true prophet tells what's going to be and encourages people to do what God says. Kagon, go to such and such a place, and or don't make war, etc. Just like there's a commandment to listen to your judges, like it says in our Torah portion, right in the beginning. You go to that's the whole idea of the Talmud. When they decide a law, so you have to listen to the law. So it is also relevant to the prophets. Like it says afterwards, Navi mikirbacha me'achecha kamoni yakim lecha Hashem Elokecha. In love tishmon, you have to listen to the prophet. Kafi shemari Rambam, like the Maimonides says in one of his 14 volumes on the Torah, Sefer Mada, it's called. So Yesod Hadat, the foundation of Judaism, is one of the 13 principles of faith. One of the foundations of Jewish faith is you have to know that God gives prophecy to people. And then he says who a prophet is. A prophet is a person who has to be pure and he has to fears God, etc. That's the prophecy that's the commandment that you have to listen and obey the prophets as well. Now, since the Rambam system, Maimonides, he brings this in his book of laws, and he brings it in tremendous detail about how we have to listen to prophets. And he also says this is one of the 13 foundations of Judaism. So it must be understood that this is a law which is relevant to the Jewish people in all the generations. It's a foundation of Judaism, not just to believe in prophets that already prophesied, but also there must be prophets in every generation you have to listen to. Even though that the rabbis say that since the last prophets, Zechariah and Malachi, in the beginning of the Second Temple, these were the last three prophets. They were also part of the men of the Great Assembly. Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi. After they died, it says that prophecy, was removed. Istalka Ruach HaKodesh Yisrael. that prophecy departed from the Jewish people. But the Rebbe said, no, we have to understand what this means. It doesn't mean it departed permanently. Prophecy, just a pirush mizeh shehi lo nitbatel legamri. Prophecy didn't go away. It wasn't stopped prophecy. It just went away. Although batlo paska, it didn't stop prophecy, and prophecy was not done away with. There's no more prophets. Like we said afterwards, we find that there is prophecy, many people throughout the generations. Like it's all understood in the books of Sifra B'Halachos, the books, the Rambam, books of law. We see that there's a lot of Tanaim, a lot of the wise men of the Mishnah. And that's right before and like 200 years something after the destruction of the temple. They had prophecy. The Rambam doesn't bring any other. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Made a big mistake. Among all the conditions, this is Tanaim. Among all the conditions that the Rambam brings for prophecy, right? A prophecy has to be a person that's pure. He has to be a person that's wise. He has to be a person that he never did sins and that he's, etc., has fears God. The Rambam doesn't bring one of the criteria of a prophet is that it doesn't exist anymore. The Rambam doesn't say that when the time of prophecy was. Prophecy is only relevant in the beginning of the second. It doesn't bring that. This seems to imply it doesn't. The Rambam doesn't say that after the prophets passed away, the last prophecies, Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi, that there's no more prophecy. No, the Rambam, Maimonides, when he talks about the laws of prophets, he is implying right now also, and even more. Maimonides writes in the letters that he wrote, Igeris Taman, that in such and such a letter, in such and such a year, that prophecy will return to the Jewish people. And he says even more, there's no doubt that prophecy will come, that return of prophecy is a preface to the coming of the Moshiach. Rambam writes, Maimonides. Like it says, Benavu, Benechem, Ubenotechem, that there will be prophecy among the Jewish people, your sons and your daughters. We can say even more that it's understood what we said before, Yoatzayach Kabatchila, that the prophecy of Isaiah, that in the future there won't be any policemen, but there will be advisors. This is also referring to prophets. That in order, that will be able to receive these revelations of the days of the Mashiach. As first of all, there has to be work, there has to be a preparation for that in the service we do right now. Right now. In the way of Yoatzayach, like the prophets, we said. Namely, drawing down this good advice, that is accepted by all people in a way that's relevant to each and every person. We said that's but tchila. Tchala means that you actually begin, you do it. Remember we said Rishona means things that are in your mind. You think about it. Hatchala means that you actually start to do, you actually put it into action. But Yoatzayach means batchila, they actually bring this new world into reality. The advisors, the prophets. And the Rebbe says nowadays there's prophets. The Zem of Sherlo Lekabel, often Panimi, the revelation of godliness in the days of the Mashiach. So there will be these advisors that are going to help us to accept this new reality, that's true reality, that's going to be in the days of the Mashiach, which is supposed to be right now. Therefore, any second now. Therefore, the law is that in the generations, now even in the time of the exile, that one of the foundations, the basis of Judaism, the axioms, 13 axioms of Judaism, that without them, Judaism is missing. It can't stand. Is that God gives prophecy to human beings. That constantly, all the generations, it is relevant that there should be a prophecy here below. until the level of prophecy, which is even to the level of prophecy of Moses. Like it says in this week's Torah portion, what does it say? Right? God says, don't go to the necromancers, don't go to the soothsayers, don't go to the astrologers and the future tellers, don't. God says, I'm going to give you a prophet. This week's Torah portion, Navi Akim Lahem Bikira Vachechem Kamocha. God says to Moses, I'm going to make a prophet like you. Shlemut in Yanavua, like the Rambam says in great length. So to a certain degree, all the prophets, Isaiah and Hosea, and these were prophets, something like Moses. It says, but before Mashiach comes, there's going to be prophets more and more like Moses. Okay, now the prophecy is going to be a little bit different. Prophets don't have to come with fire and brimstone. Prophets don't have to come and say, everybody's going to burn in hell if you don't believe in me. Prophets don't have to do that. First of all, there's no prophet that ever said such an idolatrous thing. You have to believe in me, right? The prophet Ezekiel, he enlivened 20,000 people, dry bones, brought them all back to life. He didn't say, now believe in me, I'm the Lord. Simply, it's wrong, it's insane, it's destructive, and it's a lie. It's not so. A prophet is a person that he encourages people to do what it says in the Torah. He comes to improve Jewish life and the whole world, right? Jonah, the prophet, right? He ran away, it says, because why did he run away? Because he had a prophecy to give to the Jews to return, and he knew the Jews weren't going to listen to him, so he ran away, and it ended up in the city Nineveh, and he told them to return, and they did. Return. He wanted them to improve life. That's what a prophet is. According to this, we can say that the whole reason that the Maimonides takes such a great length, and he talks about the prophecy of Moses. What does the Rambam say over there? That all the prophets, when they prophesied, they went into like a prophetic vision, and they lost their consciousness, and they became like different people. Not Moses. Moses, he remained the same person. He was standing up, always a conduit for the revelation of God. Why does Rambam have to tell us what happened? Rambam is Moses Maimonides, right? He wrote a 14-volume book with all the laws of Judaism, even things that are not practical now, but will be practical when the Mashiach comes. But everything is practical. Everything he writes in the book is practical. Either it will be practical or it is practical, will be when the Beis Hamikdash. But he goes into this whole big length about the difference between Moses and the other prophets. What's practical about that? At first glance, what was its history. What do we care in a book of laws for the Jewish people for all the generations that Moses received his prophecy standing up, and the others, they couldn't. They fell down. There were a lot of prophets, they had to take off their clothes, it says. Maybe if we can say that this is relevant to what will happen after Mashiach. It says in Mashiach, eventually there's going to be the raising of the dead, and Moses will raise up to the dead. But that's not relevant to laws now, and that's what the Maimonides did. So the explanation is very simple. In all the generations, even before the raising of the dead, when Moses will raise up from the dead also with everybody else, it's relevant to know that God gives prophecy to people. Revealed godliness revealed to the prophets. And the completion of this will be the way it was by Moses. That's the ideal level of prophecy, like it was by Moses. And even more, in every generation there will be a prophet, something like Moses. Kamocha, that's the sentence in the Torah, like it's explained in the Maimonides himself. That all prophet that stands after Moses, we don't believe in these prophets because of the miracles that they do. In fact, even Moses, they didn't believe because of the miracles he did. But because it is a commandment that God commanded to Moshe in the Torah. In other words, every prophet who Hemshech is just a continuation of Moses. But the revelation of the prophecy that comes through the different prophecies, it's a little bit different than Moses. But nevertheless, all of them, they only come in the merit and in the continuation of the prophecy of Moshe. I mean, the whole Torah is just the prophecy of Moses, right? The Jewish people only heard the first two commandments by God. In our generation, says the Rebbe, who is the prophet? The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Kavod Kedushas Mordechai. And especially after prophecy is returned back to the Jewish people, before Mashiach comes, there was the prophecy that will be the prophecy of the Mashiach himself. It says that the Mashiach himself will be a great prophet close to Moshe. And the rabbis say that the first redeemer, Moses, he will be the last redeemer. Like there will be a spark of Moses, because it says the Mashiach will be a prophet. And every generation there is at least one person that is fitting to receive this prophecy. Therefore, we have to know that it is a law. Also, right now, even before the redemption occurs, right? We know the Jewish people are still in exile. There's a lot of confusion in the world. There's no holy temple. The Jews are all scattered around. We know those things. But the Mashiach will be here before the redemption. He'll bring about the redemption. And even before this total redemption, there will be a prophet by the Mashiach even before the future redemption. And it'll be something like Yoatzayich Kebatchila. That's in the prophecy of Isaiah. It says, your prophets like in the beginning. They'll actually begin the process of the redemption. Shleimus Gila and Nevuah, there will be a complete revelation of prophecy preceding and especially after the future redemption. It says that, what's the big thing of Mashiach? That everyone will know God. It won't be a new thing only after the redemption occurs, but it has to start right now. Right now, we also have prophets. Says the Rebbe, a good example is the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Therefore, the Rebbe is not mentioning himself, even though very obviously the Rebbe is a prophet. Obviously, the Rebbe is a prophet. There's no doubt about it. We'll talk about that in one instant. Therefore, it writes, the Maimonides writes in his book, and the Rambam writes in his book, the laws, and that in the days of the Mashiach, also a preface to this. Right? He prefaced the whole thing. A lot of big examples. I mean, there's day-to-day examples, but the big ones that were advertised was the Six-Day War. Right? When there was the Six-Day War in Israel, what was it, 1968, 67? So, all the nations were attacking Israel, and nobody helped us. None of the nations of the world helped us. The United Nations was totally silent, and everybody all the Jews, they had prepared like stadiums. 75,000 coffins were prepared. They were sure that there was going to be, just massive casualties among the Jewish people. Right? We were attacked from all sides, the Egyptians on the south, and it was all coordinated and everything like that. And there were some pupils that wanted to leave the Chabad yeshivas, and the Rebbe told them not to leave. He said that the war is going to be finished in just a couple of days. And he said, you can write it in the papers. And it was advertised in the papers. The Rebbe said that war is going to finish, nothing to worry about, nothing to be afraid of. The Rebbe said the same thing when Saddam Hussein was shooting these missiles at us. People wanted to leave Israel, and the Rebbe said exactly the opposite. People should travel to Israel. Israel is the safest place in the world. He said you shouldn't be afraid, and you shouldn't make other people afraid. Lo lefached v'lo lahafchid. Don't be afraid, and don't make other people afraid. That's what the Rebbe said. And it was exactly what the Rebbe said that happened. And when the Rebbe said it, no one agreed with him. Not one expert, not one general, not one rabbi. There were tzaddikim that said, listen, whatever the Lubavitcher Rebbe says is true. It's true. If he says it, it must be true. I'm not saying it, but if he says it, must be true. And so it was. Those were the major ones. Right? Those are the major ones. Right? Saddam Hussein shot, I was there at the time, 39 missiles. Not one person was killed. As far as I know, not one person was even hurt. There was one person that was killed by a Patriot missile. And the Six-Day War, we know what happened in the Six-Day War, right? The Six-Day War. And the Rebbe screamed prophecy. We're talking about prophecy. The Rebbe screamed about the Yom Kippur War. That they're quiet. They should have attacked first. Anyway, so the Rebbe was obviously, clearly, without any doubt, no matter how you look at it, the Rebbe was simply a prophet. Prophet, and these were open, amazing prophecies. The Rebbe prophesied that the that the Iron Curtain would fall. He told the people in Russia, there was Professor Brownover was there. He said, listen, Professor Brownover was here, but he had friends in Russia. He called up his friends and said, listen, the day that the Iron Curtain is going to fall, it's going to be okay. And the people were saying, listen, if the Lubavitcher Rebbe says, maybe it must be true. But things are getting worse. Gorbachev had a totally different plan. He wanted to make more communism. And all of a sudden, and Gorbachev himself said, I had a totally different plan. All of a sudden came into my mind this perestroika, who knows what it is. And the Rebbe said that's what he told this Professor Brownover, prepare housing in Jerusalem because there's going to be a lot of Russian immigrants. Nobody believed him. Nobody thought. So that's the idea of prophecy. We're not trying to impress anybody that you got to be a Chabadnik and you have to believe like me. And the Rebbe is just trying to, again, like we say, to not be satisfied with the world the way it is, to understand the world is not the way it's supposed to be, that godliness is concealed from us. We're living in a world where we have vision, what do they call it, myopic vision, that we only see 0.0000001% of reality. And we think that's the whole picture. And it is not. And that's the whole idea of the prophet, is to wake us up to this. Now let's learn the Yom Yom. We took a little bit of time today, but I guess it was worth it. It gets better, by the way. Come tomorrow, we'll see. What did I do? 1 second. 1 minute. Yom Yom. This is what I wanted. And we will sound the shofar today. Don't be disappointed. I know you're all sitting at the edge of your chairs. Okay. In describing the unique qualities of humans, there's 4 terms, a human being. Adam, Enosh, Gever, and Ish. The Hebrew terms for a man. Adam, that refers to the quality of the mind, intellect. Ish, that's the quality of emotions. That makes a person different from an animal. A person's mind is different from an animal's mind. A person's emotions are different from animals' emotions. Enosh, this shows on weakness, either in intellect or both. Intellect, emotion, or both. Gever, this is a person who overcomes his weaknesses and removes his obstacles. So Gever, which means overpowering yourself, he works on an Enosh, which is a person that's weak, to elevate him to the level of a Ish, which means your emotions are to God, or Adam, or your mind is to God. Since it's possible for us to turn Enosh into Ish or Adam, so it's obvious that Enosh, the weak, the low one, already possesses the qualities found, the higher qualities found in Ish and in Adam. And now, sounding of the shofar. Ready? Tekiah, Shvorim, Teruah, Tekiah. Then afterwards, Tekiah, Shvorim, Tekiah, and then Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah. Here we go. Have a good day with Moshiach now. God willing, at 3 o'clock, there will be a class, not like yesterday. Yesterday, there was not a class. And the reason is because the microphone didn't work and other excuses. I have like 5 really, really, good excuses. But the best one is the microphone. It didn't work. Not only that, I had to change rooms okay. So we have what? Thank you also. God bless you all. And hope to see you all, God willing, at 3 o'clock with Moshiach now. Shalom.